Wow. That was probably the easiest arrest of that officer's career. Welcome back, beautiful and amazing human beings. This is Luke Rudowski of WeAreChange.org. Man, lots of utter insanity and nonsense happening right now, especially on the U.S. border. And just coming back from Mexico myself, I definitely have some interesting perspective on this matter that's unfolding right now, especially with some criticism of the supposed empathetic and life-changing Biden presidency. But before we get into that, plus a lot more, the clip that we played in the beginning of this broadcast was, of course, from California, as, of course, there have been riots, property destruction, and protest marking the 1-year anniversary of Breonna Taylor's death. As, of course, protests erupted in Los Angeles, Seattle, Portland, where there were many clashes with the police. Officers were injured, and 2 days ago in Portland, there was even an attempt to light a federal building on fire, which, very oddly, didn't get much media attention. Gee, I wonder why. And if you've been watching this channel, you already know why. We're just being facetious here. But U.S. President Joe Biden's response to all of this decided not to address the violence that occurred, but decided to call on for, quote, meaningful police reform in Congress, which he said he is committed towards signing into law, which is interesting since, of course, he is set to become what many people call the police state-in-chief, as Washington, D.C. still continues to be a fully militarized zone filled with barbed wire fencing and, of course, thousands of government men with firearms. Now, I don't know about you, but that's a little duplicitous, to say the least there. Something, of course, that deserves to be called out, but the mainstream media can't be bothered with that, as, of course, they're talking about the life-changing stimulus checks, which almost is as ridiculous as the previous Washington Post title that said, quote, Biden stimulus showers money on Americans, sharply cutting poverty and favoring individuals over businesses. And, of course, none of that is true. All of this is an absolute lie and conjecture that, of course, will be screwing over your future children and grandchildren with a bill that, of course, is unpayable, while, of course, destroying the purchasing power of the dollar, which has been declining for a very long time. All, of course, as the majority of the money doesn't go to individuals. A lot of it goes to foreign aid, immigration services, bailing out states for their horrible decisions that they will never face the true ramifications of because they're getting rewarded for screwing people over, bonuses for state government officials, and I could go on and on and on about the money that you think is really going to you, but in reality, the government is taking away a lot more and then only giving you a small piece back in return. Now, of course, you shouldn't expect anything else from the mainstream media, and the only way to counter them, the only way to go up against their larger psychological operations is, of course, to fund and support independent media. We found a very fun and amazing way to do this, and of course, LukeUncensored.com, which we started to do exclusive videos from for only people who sign up for 50 cents a day, and they're able to get very powerful videos about things that, of course, we can't discuss here on YouTube. In today's video, we will be discussing some very worrying news surrounding this issue on your screen right now, with, of course, some context to what happened to Marvin Hagler, and we're going to be fully delving into this in some very important context, which you could only exclusively get on LukeUncensored.com. Also, we're going to be sending everyone a free video very soon on our email list, which you could only get by going to WeAreChange.org, top right-hand corner, sign up right here, put in your email, and soon we're going to send you one example of the content that we produce on LukeUncensored.com, which will only be available for people who sign up on the email list, which of course costs you absolutely nothing, and of course safeguards us and allows us to continue our work no matter what. Now, continuing on with the larger psychological disinformation mind control techniques by the mainstream media trying to convince you that the government taking away a large portion of your money or your kids' future money and giving you a small portion of it back is somehow amazing, we have to understand that the audacity of the politicians behind this, like Kamala Harris, are calling this, quote, a representation of empathy being the trademark of the Biden presidency, because of this. Now, of course, large swamps of the mainstream media just run this headline unquestionably. No counter-narrative, no pushback, no conversation, except empathy is the trademark of the Biden presidency, which, let's be honest here, reads like a total propaganda piece from organizations like Pravda previously before, that of course parroted government talking points rather than actually commit the act of journalism, which is becoming more and more rare. And if the Biden presidency is so empathetic, why in the world is there a border crisis, according to many experts, right now on the U.S.-Mexican border, as there are reports that child migrant facilities are at 700% capacity? As of course, Joe Biden's empathetic White House denies lawyers access to it, which of course prevent the people from finding out even more what's happening behind the scenes. Now, even according to CBS News, they ran with a headline that reads, quote, "They never saw the sun. Lawyers describe overcrowded conditions for children in Border Patrol custody." Now, there's a lot of things to unpack here, especially why this is happening in the first place, and we'll get into that in just a little bit. But we are getting reports that there have been over 100,000 apprehensions on the U.S.-Mexican border just in February alone. And of course, this number is only going to be dramatically increasing from here. As of course, we were telling you on this independent media broadcast that this was going to happen, especially with some of the rhetoric by Joe Biden that of course invited a lot of migrants, thinking that they would just be allowed to enter and to walk into the United States. Now, of course, in some instances, that actually has been happening. And from personally reporting on the border crisis that was happening between Mexico and the United States, specifically doing on-the-ground reporting in Tijuana, it's important to note here that a lot of people trying to enter the United States from other countries in Latin America are misinformed to the exact situation that they are going to be going through. And a lot of words and rhetoric from Democratic politicians leads to a lot of this misunderstanding that essentially leads to a lot of human suffering. The reason that there's a lot of children is because there has been an idea previously before that if a family comes across with small children, that they somehow will be allowed to enter the United States freely for that child's sakes. This has also led to a tremendous increase of abductions of small children in Mexico, along with the explosion of child trafficking. And again, it didn't take a genius to figure out, as we were telling you, this was going to become a major issue on the border very soon, and here we are today, which again is not very empathetic. It's the opposite of empathetic, especially when you look at the larger migrant crisis created right now that even the Mexican government is worried about, as they are telling the United States to stop stoking policies and language that are creating this huge influx of people on the border, because organized crime is going to be profiting off of this handsomely. And again, here you see a picture on the border with many people wearing t-shirts that say Biden, let us in. And of course, whenever you have something that is prohibited, illicit, illegal, you are going to have the thriving of the criminal organizations that benefit off of ridiculous government policies and rules that absolutely create the problems that they claim to solve. That's why you have a lot of coyotes. That's why you have a lot of human smugglers, traffickers, and other organized crime individuals that are taking advantage of this rush on the border, and they're using people and families to smuggle items that are usually prohibited by, again, more insane government policies that absolutely make no sense. And as the Mexican government keeps trying to warn the United States about the increase of violence, the increase of criminal activity here in the United States, by and large, this issue has been ignored, as well as the suffering of many of these children, as of course ICE is begging for volunteers in order to help them out. As of course, the empathetic Biden administration is trying to keep a lid on people finding out about exactly what is happening. The reason that there's so many children and unaccompanied minors is because the government is having a hard time actually tracking down and finding who the parents of these children are. Again, the government can't get anything done right. Imagine the DMV only on a larger scale, and then you would be shocked to see people call for more DMV-like services that are absolutely inadequate, incompetent, and totally irrational. As a perfect example of this, in New York City, the government there, which taxes its citizens for living in the city, in the state, and in some of the highest levels in this country, has released a new report outlining how the Department of Corrections is spending almost $500,000 per inmate in fiscal 2020. Yes, the New York City government is spending nearly $500,000, $447,000, 337 to be accurate, per inmate in their jail. Now, when you see government wasteful spending like this, especially with them spending more and more money to incarcerate fewer and fewer people, you have to start wondering and asking yourself, what's really going on here? As of course, the number of people in jail have gone down, but the amount of money spent on them is absolutely staggering. And we have to ask ourselves, what the hell are they doing? Where is $500,000 of taxpayer money going to? And again, that's money that if you spend on an individual would absolutely be life-changing. But with the crisis getting worse on the border and expected to get a lot worse, as of course many people are coming from all over Latin America and will continue to come in droves, especially with more people being allowed in, even without specific tests that only American citizens are made to take when they fly into this country. What are the Democrats going to be doing about this? Well, denying lawyers access to the facility so there's no transparency, and of course, blaming Trump. Yes, as Speaker of the House, Nancy Pelosi just blamed Donald Trump for the, quote, humanitarian crisis at the border, saying that, of course, Joe Biden is trying to correct this broken system, which, again, just highlights the absolute delusion of grandeur that a lot of these individuals have, since, of course, this rush on the border is right after Joe Biden got rid of many Trump immigration policies that are no longer valid. Because of that, and because of his rhetoric, it's one of the reasons why there is such a huge rush on the border, and there will continue to be a rush on the border, since, of course, open immigration perfectly benefits the big multinational corporations that benefit off of illegal labor, which in most of the states, they don't even have to abide by a lot of the labor laws and are able to do whatever they want. Of course, also at the same time, cheapening the labor force of this country, allowing wages to continue to go down with an increase of labor and less demand for it. This is why individuals like the Koch brothers and Soros, even though they are seen as separate entities of separate political classes, are all for open borders, which was correctly called out previously by Bernie Sanders a few years ago and now is widely ignored by him. Open immigration hurts the immigrants, hurts the poorest of this country, is creating tragedy, is creating a situation that, of course, will never heal or create a better situation for the countries in Latin America that are going to be going through a major brain drain and essentially never becoming better, because the people who would make it better would be going to the United States and are going to the United States. Again, many facets to really understand here. I don't really have a black and white understanding of this issue because this is not a black and white issue. This is a very complicated issue, and it should be categorized as what is causing human suffering and pain and what isn't. And when you look at a lot of these larger policies, it's clear. The government is openly hurting people and their future and their prospects, and it needs to be called out no matter what. Now, when you look at the current situation in the United States, it doesn't really present a very favorable one for the future, especially with people fighting each other over menial differences, the borders being left wide open, and a reckless waste of spending that's happening right now. You really see a future that will lead to the demise, if not the collapse, of this country. And in my opinion, I think a lot of this is being done on purpose. I think there's going to be a lot more human suffering, and the only way not to get hurt is, of course, to pay attention and to understand fully what's going on, because the mainstream media is absolutely misinforming you. It's also important to note here and to remind everyone that economic cycles, boom-bust cycles, or cycles that benefit the ultra-elites, that usually always know when a boom or a bust is going to happen and then make financial decisions that, of course, greatly benefit them and screw everyone else over. This could be one of the reasons why individuals like Bezos and Gates have been making an incredible amount of money during these very hard economic times for everyone else. And during these times, it's also important to remind you that you should do your best not to be angry, not to be provocative, not to be bitter, but do your best to be kind, gentle, and polite, since these are very difficult times for everyone. Only our mutual understanding of this current situation will lead to a situation that can potentially get us out of it. At the very least, you could inform yourselves and the ones around you not to be victims of the larger traps set for you by the mainstream media establishment society. All of what they push is usually trash, it usually hurts you, and I had enough of it. And if you did too, share this video with your friends and family members so they get a perspective and understanding that, of course, they will never get on the U.S. mainstream media. Again, I got a lot more to say about a lot more disturbing areas that are unfolding right now all across the world, which I'm going to be exclusively talking about on LukeUncensored.com. I'm making a video right after this one. It's usually 5 videos a week. We got a lot more coming. And because you guys share this video, because you guys are tuned in to LukeUncensored.com, I'm here, and I wouldn't be here if it wasn't for you. And this is why I love you guys. Stay tuned for more here on WeAreChange.org.